going to be exploring how these huge gold mines can actually be transformed into fertile farmland through innovative land rehabilitation.
It's a fascinating idea. The potential for economic and social shifts, especially how mining interacts with the environment and local communities.
Yeah, and we'll be exploring all of this through volume 39 of Mining Company's Corporate Social Investment magazine. They're focusing on where mining and agriculture and social responsibility all kind of intersect.
That's a great perspective to consider, to really understand if this new era actually benefits everyone involved.
Exactly. So today we're trying to figure out, is South Africa's mining industry really turning over a new leaf? What does all this mean for the people who live near these mines, the environment, even potential investors?
I think to understand all that, we have to start with the political landscape, because there's a lot of change happening there.
You're right. South Africa just got its seventh administration, and it's a government of national unity, or a GNU. This basically means different political parties are working together. And the magazine highlights a lot of optimism surrounding this GNU. There's a lot of hope that it'll bring more stability, boost investor confidence, and ultimately lead to better service delivery.
That kind of political stability is really crucial for attracting the investment needed to make these innovative projects happen.
Absolutely. The magazine has an interview with John Steenhuisen, the new Minister of Agriculture. He's really big on collaboration between the mining and agriculture sectors. He sees them working together for economic development.
What I find interesting is his idea of repurposing rehabilitated mining land, turning it into new farmland to create jobs and promote sustainability.
It's a pretty wild idea, taking these industrial mining sites and turning them into something that can, actually feed people.
Right. And to make sure it's done right, he emphasizes the importance of testing, like really carefully checking the soil and water to see if the land is actually good for farming. It seems like they want to make sure they do things the right way, not just rush into something new.
It makes sense. And it's not just about growing crops on old mine sites either. It's about addressing food security in those communities. We're talking about things like community gardens, building local value chains, creating a more sustainable and resilient food system in these areas.
Often, we overlook how mining can contribute to agricultural innovation, too. The magazine mentions that some companies use their corporate social investment programs to promote things like regenerative agriculture.
That's amazing. It's an approach that could revitalize whole ecosystems. Speaking of those CSI programs, the magazine actually has some really inspiring examples of mining companies really driving positive change. One that really stuck with me was Mogale Tailings Retreatment, or MTR. They're going above and beyond normal land rehabilitation with this community-based project to clear out all these invasive plant species.
Yeah, invasive species are a big threat to biodiversity, so tackling them head-on is crucial. What's impressive is how they got the community involved, providing accredited training to local residents on environmental management.
It's a win-win, right? They're not just hiring outside contractors, they're giving people valuable skills for long-term employment.
For sure.
And MTR is really dedicated to these communities. They've got this great Mandela Day initiative where they help out the Ellen Glenn Home for children with special needs. They've donated supplies, and MTR staff even volunteered time to paint and fix up the facility. It shows how committed they are to actually making a difference.
It's always great to see a company that does more than just write a check. Really getting involved with the community in a meaningful way.
Absolutely. Shows they're not just talking the talk, they're walking the walk. Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about something really exciting: the increasing number of women working in mining.
That's something I'm always interested in.
Mm.
Mining's historically been a very male-dominated field, so seeing women in leadership roles is really encouraging.
For sure. The magazine spotlights some real trailblazers, like Pana Exelabile. She put together this Empower Her seminar. Basically, it's a place where women can support each other, learn about business, and really step into leadership roles within the mining sector.
It sounds like it's about helping women not just participate, but really excel in the industry. What were some of the key things they covered in that seminar?
They talked about all sorts of things: boosting leadership skills, business smarts, how to manage money, getting access to capital, even training and mentorship opportunities. It's all about breaking down those barriers that have traditionally held women back in the mining industry.
And it sounds like they had some great support from different businesses, too. The magazine mentioned sponsors like FNB, Standard Bank, BMW, even Pick and Pay. It seems like people recognize how important it is to invest in women's leadership.
Yeah. And when it comes to investing, we can't forget about the MTN Foundation's Women in Digital Business Challenge. They're putting in R1 million to support women-led tech startups in mining. It's a great way to encourage diversity in the ICT sector, which, like mining, often lacks representation.
Exactly. It's about recognizing all the talent and potential in those underrepresented groups and giving them the resources to really thrive.
It's a huge step towards more inclusive and equitable mining industry. But let's be real, there are still challenges that South African mining faces.
You're right. Even with all the progress, it's important to acknowledge the reality on the ground. What are some of the key concerns the magazine brings up?
Well, the electricity supply is still a big worry, and they also mention crime and logistics as ongoing problems.
Those are all connected issues. A reliable tower grid is essential for any industry, and crime and logistics problems can really slow things down.
Yeah, exactly. But the magazine does say that people are working on these challenges. The government is teaming up with the private sector to stabilize the power grid. And they're also creating a new online mining cadastre, which is supposed to make the sector more transparent and efficient.
Those sound like steps in the right direction. Transparency and efficiency are really important for attracting investment and making sure the benefits of mining are shared more fairly.
For sure. And then there's the whole environmental side of things. The magazine has a really interesting piece on carbon capture, utilization, and storage, also called CCUS. They talk about this new research site in Mpumalanga called Leandra that could play a big role in reducing South Africa's carbon footprint.
CCUS is still a pretty new technology, but it has a lot of potential to help reduce the environmental impact of industries like mining. It shows that South Africa is serious about finding more sustainable solutions for the future.
It really feels like we're at a turning point, don't you think? Social responsibility, environmental awareness, and innovative thinking are all coming together to chart a new course for mining in South Africa.
It's definitely an exciting time. I'm really curious to see how all these trends play out and what kind of impact they'll have on communities, the economy, and the environment over the next few years.
Our exploration continues. We've got lots more inspiring stories and groundbreaking initiatives to uncover.
One thing I noticed in this magazine is how much they emphasize like the ripple effect of these positive initiatives. It's not just about the direct impact they have on communities or the environment. It's about how those actions inspire even broader changes.
Yeah, like a chain reaction of positive change.
Exactly.
A perfect example is the partnership between Harmony Gold Mine and the Safer South Africa Foundation.
That's a great example of how mining companies can really contribute to things like community safety and youth development.
They've been running the Communities and Justice Program and the Youth Out of School Crime Prevention Program for over 2 years now in, get this, 9 schools and 4 communities across 3 provinces.
Wow, that's a huge commitment.
It is, and they're really focused on education. They teach young people about the criminal justice system and help them understand the consequences of crime and give them other options.
It's about breaking the cycle.
Uh-huh.
Instead of just reacting to crime after it happens,
Right.
they're trying to address the root causes by giving young people the tools they need and building safer, stronger communities.
Totally. And it goes beyond just lectures and workshops. They're actually facilitating dialogues, bringing together all kinds of different stakeholders, like government departments, civil society organizations, even social business experts, all to find solutions to these tough challenges.
That kind of holistic approach is what makes it so effective. They're creating a sense of shared responsibility for community safety.
It's really cool. And the results speak for themselves. They've reached over 2,000 young people. It shows you the difference businesses like Harmony Gold Mine can make when they put their resources into social initiatives.
Absolutely.
Speaking of making a difference, let's talk about skills development. The magazine has a piece on Rasan, the drilling technology provider, and the work they're doing to tackle youth unemployment.
Yeah, youth unemployment is a big problem in South Africa. The rates were almost 60% in the first quarter of this year. It's scary. Rasan is trying to do something about it by offering specialized training programs, to equip young people with the skills they need to succeed in the drilling industry.
And they're not messing around. They have these training centers all over the country with accredited courses and everything from basic health and safety to operating really advanced drilling equipment.
That accreditation is huge. It means these young people are getting qualifications that are recognized everywhere in the industry,
Right.
which obviously helps them a lot when they're looking for jobs long term.
For sure. And it doesn't stop there. They also offer learnerships and bursaries, which opens up even more career paths.
Wow.
It's like a whole system for youth development. It's perfect for World Youth Skills Day.
It really highlights how investing in young people is about so much more than just getting them jobs. It's about giving them what they need to build a better future, not just for themselves, but for their communities too.
Exactly. And speaking of building a better future, let's move on to Sishin Mine. They've got a pretty unique approach to community development.
Oh, tell me about the Sisson Classic Charity Golf Day.
Okay, picture this. A fancy golf tournament at the Kalahari Country Club. But it's not really about winning the game. It's about raising money for local schools. They had 20 local service providers and contractors participate, each paying a R50,000 pardon entry fee.
So like a high-stakes game of golf, but with a really good cause, what happened?
They raised a ton of money, R1.8 million to be exact.
Wow, that's amazing.
And all that money went directly to 17 local schools to help improve academic performance in the area. They even worked with the Department of Basic Education to make sure the funds were used properly.
That's awesome. It really shows that even something as simple as a golf tournament
Yeah.
can be a powerful tool for positive change when people really care about making a difference.
Totally. And it wasn't just about the money either. The guy in charge of the event, Kyle Inglis, talked about how it brought everyone together and, created a real sense of community.
It's using sport as a platform for like social cohesion and economic development. That's smart. But the magazine also mentioned another thing Sishin Mine is doing for education. They're partnering with the TE Connectivity Foundation,
Yeah, they're working together to build this super high-tech center at the Northern Cape Rural TVET College in Kathu.
a technology center in a rural area. That's fantastic. It's a great way to bridge that digital divide and give people access to education and opportunities they might not have otherwise.
Exactly. They're putting all the latest tech in there, things like robotics and 3D printing. And to make sure everyone can participate, they're giving scholarships to students who wouldn't be able to afford this kind of education on their own.
It's not just about helping individual students. It's about investing in the whole region.
Which brings us back to that ripple effect we were talking about earlier. These initiatives create a positive feedback loop. Invest in education, you get economic growth, and that leads to even more opportunities to invest in communities.
It's a cycle that's driven by a commitment to social responsibility and a belief in the power of education. But being socially responsible goes beyond just community investment. It's also about being environmentally sustainable. The magazine highlights a couple of companies that are doing some great things in this area.
One of them is Sariti Green, a subsidiary of Sariti Resources, which is one of South Africa's biggest coal miners. It might seem weird that a coal company is leading the way in renewable energy, but
It's a sign of the times, right?
yeah,
Even industries that have always relied on fossil fuels are realizing that we need a more sustainable future.
exactly. Sariti Green is actually building South Africa's first majority black-owned wind farm in Mpumalanga. This R4.8 billion project is going to generate enough clean energy to power 75% of Sariti's coal mines.
That's huge. It shows a real commitment to sustainability, and they're backing it up with serious investment.
And it's not just good for the planet, it's good for business. Clean energy means lower operating costs and helps them stay competitive in the long run.
It's a win-win for sure. And this is just the beginning. They're planning to build even more wind farms in the future.
They're really serious about a cleaner future, and they're not the only ones. The magazine also talks about Fuchs Lubricants South Africa. They're taking steps to reduce their carbon footprint, too.
That's interesting. The lubricants industry isn't exactly known for being sustainable. What are they doing?
Well, they partnered with SolarF, a solar energy company, to put a solar PV system in their facilities. This will really increase the amount of renewable energy they use.
That's a big step. It really shows they're serious about reducing their reliance on fossil fuels.
And they've got this whole roadmap for 2030 with even bigger goals for cutting their greenhouse gas emissions. They're looking at things like electricity wheeling, which is basically moving electricity from one place to another on the grid, and they're implementing a bunch of energy efficiency projects.
It's great to see that kind of leadership from an industry that's known for its emissions. They're setting a good example for others to follow.
It really emphasizes that sustainability isn't just about making big, flashy statements. It's about making practical changes and always looking for ways to do better for the environment.
At the end of the day, it's about understanding that we're all in this together. The choices we make today will impact future generations.
Thinking about all these stories, what do you think? Are we seeing a real shift towards a more responsible and sustainable mining industry in South Africa?
Yeah, it does feel like things are changing for the better. This magazine is full of stories about companies going above and beyond. You know, they're investing in their communities, promoting skills development, really embracing renewable energy.
It's definitely part of a larger trend. I think people are finally starting to understand the social and environmental impact of mining. There's a real push to build a more equitable and sustainable future.
That's great to hear. But we have to remember there's always more to the story. We can't just focus on the good stuff and forget about the challenges that are still out there.
Oh, absolutely. We still have to deal with things like unreliable electricity, crime, logistics, and of course, there's all the environmental damage from mining in the past that we need to clean up.
We also have to be careful about greenwashing. Companies making their sustainability efforts sound way better than they actually are just for marketing. That's true.
Mm.
We can't just take their word for it. We need to hold them accountable, make sure their actions match their words, and that they're making real, measurable progress.
It's a long process, not a quick fix. We need to keep pushing for transparency and accountability.
For sure. But even with all the challenges, I think there's a lot of reason to be optimistic. What we're seeing in South Africa is a really interesting combination of factors. The political will is there, companies are stepping up and taking responsibility, and communities are getting involved in speaking out. They're all working together to create a mining industry that's fairer and more sustainable.
It's a story that's still being written, and I can't wait to see how it all plays out.
Me too. Now, let's switch gears a bit and talk about this company that's taking a really cool approach to community empowerment. The magazine features the M4 Foundation and how they're tackling a problem you might not usually think about in connection with mining: fast fashion.
Fast fashion. That's interesting. How are fast fashion and mining related?
It all comes down to the environmental impact. The magazine talks about how much textile waste we produce globally. It's crazy, almost 2 million tons every year. And a lot of that ends up in landfills, where it takes forever to decompose and releases harmful greenhouse gases.
So that's where mining companies come in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The M4 Foundation saw that a lot of mining communities have limited economic opportunities. So they started this denim upcycling project in the Moipla's informal settlement.
They're like giving old jeans a new life. That's awesome.
Yeah. They teach local women how to turn old denim into all sorts of things like dresses, pillows, bags, even keychains. It's reducing waste, creating sustainable jobs, and empowering women all in one.
That's such a great example of how social responsibility and sustainability can work together.
Now, we need to talk about the elephant in the room when it comes to sustainability.
Yeah.
South Africa's reliance on coal for energy. It's a big contributor to climate change.
The magazine did mention some pretty cool developments in carbon capture technology, especially that new research site in Mpumalanga.
Right, the Leandra Research Site. It's South Africa's first pilot project for carbon capture, utilization, and storage, or CCUS. This technology could be a game changer. It can capture those carbon emissions from things like power plants and then store them underground so they don't end up in the atmosphere.
That sounds really important, especially for countries like South Africa that still depend heavily on fossil fuels.
It's a big step in the right direction. But we can't get ahead of ourselves. CCUS technology is still pretty new and needs a lot of investment and collaboration to really work. It's not a magic bullet, but it shows a commitment to finding solutions.
So after all this, what's the main takeaway for our listeners? Is South Africa's mining industry really entering a new era?
Well, I think it's safe to say that things are changing in a big way. We're seeing a real shift away from just following the rules to a genuine commitment to doing better for people and the planet.
It's amazing to see these companies stepping up and investing in education, creating jobs, supporting women, and switching to clean energy. And they're not just doing it for show, they're making real positive changes.
But there's still a long way to go. We have to keep asking tough questions and holding these companies accountable for their promises.
I agree. We need to stay informed and keep pushing for more transparency and accountability.
Overall, though, I think there's reason to be hopeful. We're seeing a new generation of leaders in both the mining companies and in the communities, and they're all working towards a future where mining is more just and sustainable.
It's definitely an exciting time for South African mining. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the changing world of mining in South Africa. Thanks for joining us.
It's been great. And remember, this is just the start of the conversation. What other changes do you think we'll see in the future of mining? How can technology, sustainability, and social justice shape that future?
Keep those questions in mind and keep an eye on those companies and initiatives we talked about. It'll be interesting to see what happens next.
Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep asking those important questions.
And remember, the future is being mined, one responsible action at a time.